Namaste and good morning, everyone. We'll start our class with the prayers. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Now we'll chant Mahamrityunjay mantra 3 times to pray for those who are in suffering. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukam Iva Bandhana Mrutyurmukshiyamamrutat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukam Iva Bandhana Mrutyurmukshiyamamrutat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukam Iva Bandhana Mrutyurmukshiyamamrutat Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome everyone. Continuing our Gita study. In the last class we saw these two verses where Lord is describing the self as not being subject to being cut by the weapons, nor being subject to burn by the fire, nor having the water ability to wet it, nor the wind can dry it. And then he basically says that it is simply that it is not possible to cut because self is not made of any components. So anything you can split or cut only if it is made of any components. So that's not applicable to the self. It's not possible to burn it either by fire or in a subtle manner like burning with anger. It's not possible to wet it either by the water or in any figurative manner also, nor can it be dried. For it is eternal, not subject to time, everywhere present, stable, immovable, this self. So these are the some ways Lord has defined what the self is, and particularly in relation to juxtaposition to the body, because most of the times we take the body as the self, as I myself. So we take it as a body. So Lord is describing the self. And continuing in the same fashion, he is describing it further. And we'll chant this verse. Verse number 25. So I'll chant one quart at a time and you repeat after me. Avyaktoyam achintyoyam अविकार्योऽयमुच्यते. तस्मादेवं विदित्वैनं नानुशोचितुमर्हसि. I'll chant the verse, the whole verse together. Avyaktoyamachintyoyam avikaryoyamuchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitumarhasi. So we'll see the word meanings. Avyakta, it's a nominal. Ayam is a nominal pronoun. Achintya is a nominal. Ayam again is a pronoun. Avikaryaha is a nominal. Ayam is a pronoun. Uchyate is a verb. Tasmat is an indeclinable. Evam is indeclinable. Viditva is indeclinable. Enam is a nominal. Na is indeclinable. Anushochitum is a indeclinable. Arhasi is a verb. So you see here in this sentence, this is like one sentence, or it can be split into three sentences. We have the same ayam avyaktaha, ayam achintyaha, ayam avikaryaha uchyate. So as you can see, what are the nominal words? Avyaktaha, achintyaha, avikaryaha. They are all nominative singular, masculine. Nominative singular, masculine, like Ramaha. So here the base word is avyakta, meaning unmanifest. Ayam is a pronoun, and if you remember, we discussed this word earlier also. This idam, when you have in the masculine, the nominative singular is ayam. So this is also nominative singular, masculine. And here the base word is idam. This. Idam means this. Achintya, also nominative singular, masculine. And this word is also like akaranta, masculine. Achintya. So chintya means something which can be an object of thought. And achintya means not an object of thought. Ayam is the same, nominative singular, masculine, idam. This. Avikarya, again it is nominative singular. And this word is this will be unmodifiable. So vikarya is the modification, vikara, avikarya or change. Avikarya means unmodifiable. Ayam, again the same word. Uchyate. So you see here, all the words so far we have considered, they are all nominative singular masculine. It's a real easy from a grammatical perspective. Uchyate would be the verb, lut, third person, singular. It's a Atmanipadi ending. Root is vach, means to speak. And this is a passive form. So what does it mean? It is spoken of as. So vach means to speak and is spoken of as. So this self, this is referring to the self, which is being described earlier. So this self is being spoken of as unmanifest. This is spoken of as something which is not an object of thought. And this is spoken of something as unmodifiable. We'll see what do these mean. Tasmat. Tasmat is therefore, it's indeclinable. Evam is also indeclinable. Thus, viditva is also indeclinable, so it will only have the meaning having known or knowing. Enam, we have seen this word quite a lot in the previous verses. This going to the same pronoun table, enam. This is the accusative singular. Masculine. And this base word is idam. This. Na is indeclinable. Not. Anushochetum. This is also indeclinable. To grieve. Arhasi. This is a verb form. Present tense, lat lakara. Second person. Singular. Parasmaipadi. And here the root is arha, means to deserve or to be worthy of. So it is the second person singular. So you deserve. That's what it would mean. You deserve, or you should. In that sense also it can be used. So the meaning of this sentence would be, therefore, knowing this or knowing it as such, in this manner, thus or in this manner, you deserve not to grieve. So you should not grieve, basically. That's what it means. There is no reason for you to grieve. So first, Lord is describing the self. This self is unmanifest. So you see the word avyakta. Vyakta is something which is manifest, which is available for sense perception. From this, the word vyakti also comes. Vyakti means being sometimes referred to as a human being, the body, because body is a human being in a particular form is perceptible to senses. So called Vyakti. So Vyakta is anything which is manifest or available for sense perception. When you put Akara, it becomes opposite of it and it becomes unmanifest. Means it's not available for sense perception. So one cannot see Atma like with the eyes, one cannot hear with the ears or smell or taste or touch. It is unmanifest. Then he is saying this is spoken of. So one can say, okay, it may not be available for sense perception, but it is something which I can perceive it as an object. So Lord is saying that it cannot be perceived as an object of thought. So we have, for example, pain. If the pain is there somewhere in the body, it's not available for perception by sense organs, but it's available for perception as I can perceive the pain. And there are many things. We do not perceive them by senses. So if a person is, we have all these ideas that a person is a good person or a bad person, and that goodness or badness, so to speak, is not available for sense perception, but it's available as an object of thought. So could the self be available as an object of thought in the similar manner? And Lord is saying that is also not the case. So chintya, again the same, you see akara here, that means it makes it negative. So chintya means something which is available for one as an object of thought. Achintya means it's not available for one as an object of thought. So this self is spoken of as achintya, not as an object of thought. Then vikara. So vikara means some modification or change. So we discussed in earlier one of the classes that everything in the nature is subject to change. Everything is changing every single moment. If you look at from a scientific perspective, that is also well proven that everything is in motion, everything is in a state of change. This body is constantly undergoing change. Our cells, trillions of cells we have in the body, millions of them are dying every moment and new ones are being born. To the extent that in 7 years, the whole body is regenerated. All the cells are regenerated. Similarly, our mind is also modifiable. Our thought is not the same. Thoughts are constantly undergoing changes. Memory is also undergoing changes. So everything, whether it is gross or subtle, that is subject to change. That is constantly undergoing change. But the self is not undergoing any change. It cannot, because it's unmodifiable. So that's how it is spoken of as. So it's unmanifest, it's not an object of thought, and it's not subject to any modifications. And Lord is telling Arjuna that therefore, knowing in this manner, knowing the self in this manner, you deserve not to grieve. There is no reason for you to grieve. Because Arjuna's grief was that what will happen if the war takes place. The people whom I love, they will be dead. And I will become a cause for it. The very people for whom we want to enjoy the riches, we want to share the riches with them, they will be no more. So what's the point? So that was Arjuna's grief. And Lord is saying that the real nature of everybody is that immutable self, and that is not subject to change. That is not subject to birth or death, Lord has described earlier. So knowing the self in this manner, you should not grieve. There is no reason for you to grieve. Now here is an interesting word, viditva, knowing. That means Arjuna doesn't really have to do anything. All he has to just understand that this is what it is. Lord is not asking him to perform any meditations, do any sadhana, or go to forest. He is saying that just understand this as a fact. He is not saying that you believe me. Remember this thing in Gita, what we call blind faith in English, that is not talked about. There is no question of believer versus non-believer. It's a question of that you understand, you see the truth as it is. You don't have to believe me. Once you understand this, once you know this, then you will also know automatically that there is no reason to grieve. The grief will disappear forever for good, for once and for all. So this part, that knowing, this is very important here. So this knowing is not by doing something. This knowing is not by believing something, but just to understand as the things are. You see the things as they are. And just knowing itself will take you across the grief. So this is a very wonderful proposition here, that just knowledge alone can make one free from grief, can one make free from sorrow. So with this and the previous verses, Lord has described the self and why there is no room, there is no legitimate reason for Arjuna to grieve. And if you look at with this verse, Lord is saying basically that, look, I have told you about the self and how the body is different from the self. And now if you understand this, you understand the way I have told you, then you deserve not to grieve. There is no reason for you to grieve, and you should get up and perform your duty, which is to fight this righteous war. So I'm sure that Lord must have taken a pause here by saying that you need not grieve. You remember here, when Lord is saying that you deserve not to grieve, this is not an advice. This is not saying that you should not grieve. Like many a times, if somebody is in grief, we try to console the person and saying, don't grieve, it will be okay. That's not what Lord is doing here. Lord is not giving a consolation to Arjuna. He is telling the truth. The nature of truth is such that there is no room for you to grieve. Not now, not ever. So, and that you should understand this truth. You should understand, you should have this knowledge what I'm talking about. It's not an advice. It's not a manner of that you need to believe me. It's not a matter of that you need to do something. You just need to understand that this is what it is. So if somebody is afraid of a snake when it is at the time of dusk and runs away from fear, another person comes and shows him that object by torchlight, that look, this is not a snake, this is a rope. you mistook it as a snake. So look at carefully, understand this as a rope, and once you understand this as a rope, there is no reason for you to grieve. There is no reason for your fear. There is no reason for you to run away. So that will happen automatically if you understand what it is, not a matter of belief, nor is it just an advice or trying to cheer up somebody. It's not that, because that's not what Arjuna asked. Arjuna asked, what is Shreyas, the true knowledge I want to have, and that's what Lord is providing him. So with this, Lord might have paused and looked at Arjuna for reaction, and probably Lord did not see that sign of understanding in his face, and he tries to explain the things differently. So we'll see the next verse. So first we'll chant the verse. Atha chainam nitya jatam nityam va manyase mrutam tathapi tvam mahabhaho naivam shochitum arhasi. Now the whole verse together. Atha chainam nitya jatam nityam va manyase mrutam tathapi tvam mahabhaho naivam shochitum arhasi. We'll see the word meanings. Atha is indeclinable. Cha is also indeclinable. Enam we have seen many times, nominal pronoun. Nitya jatam, it's a nominal. Nityam is indeclinable. Va is indeclinable. Manyase is a verb. Mrutam is nominal. Tatha is indeclinable. Api is also indeclinable. Tvam is nominal pronoun. Mahabaho is nominal. Na is indeclinable. Evam is indeclinable. Shochitum is indeclinable. Arhasi is a verb. So lot of indeclinables here that makes the grammatical analysis a little easier, because all we have to provide the meaning of the word. So atha means in case. So atha has a lot of meanings, and here this meaning, in case or on the other hand, in that sense it is used. Cha means and. Enam we have seen in the previous verse also. Enam, nominal pronoun. Accusative singular. Nitya jatam, so it is also accusative singular. You could take it, because it's an adjective, it can be taken as masculine or neuter. We can take it as a masculine here, and this is like Ramam. Base word is Nitya Jata. So constantly being born, that's what it means. Constantly being born. So Nitya means constantly and Jata means being born. So constantly being born. Nityam, this is indeclinable, means constantly, or it also means eternally. Va, or sometimes it is used indeed. Manyase, this is verb form here. So it's a lat lakara, present tense, second person, singular. It's a atmanepadi root, and root word here is man, to consider. So it means it's a second person singular, means you consider. It's a present tense, so it's not you consider as a command, but you consider simply as a statement of fact, like as we say, you run every mile for in the morning, you run in the morning every day, like just a statement, not a command or a request. In English, that can be confusing. So in Sanskrit, there are two different tenses for conveying those two different ideas. So what it means is, this is one sentence. Manyase mrutam. Mrutam is dead. It is also nominal, just like nitya jatam. Accusative, singular, masculine. Base word is mruta. Mruta means dead. So what, this is one sentence now. So in case you are considering this, this is referring to the self. Enam, if you remember last time we discussed that it is used when you are describing something which is previously, when you are referring to something which is previously described. So enam is this related to the self. So in case Lord is saying that you are considering this self constantly being born and constantly dying, tatha api. So tatha is then, api is even then. That's what it means. Both together, tatha api means even then. Tvam, this is a nominal pronoun, nominative, singular, masculine. The base word here is yushmad, means you. Mahabaho, this is vocative, singular, masculine. And this is Mahabahu. So vocative becomes Mahabaho, one with mighty arms. Referring here to Arjuna. Na means not, it's an indeclinable. Evam, in this manner. Shochitum, it's also indeclinable, to grieve. Arhasi, arhasi we saw just here, same word here. So So he is saying, even then, O Arjuna, you do not deserve to grieve in this manner. So essentially what does it mean is, Lord is telling Arjuna that whatever I have told you so far about the self, you do not get it. You do not think that what I'm telling you is the reality. You have your own understanding of what the self is. And in your own understanding, suppose the self is being constantly subject to birth and death. Even then, O Arjuna, with one with mighty arms, you do not deserve to grieve in this manner. So atha is a word here which has multiple meanings. So it means, thus, it is also used in the starting of a work of any work of literature or scripture. Many a times it is used, like in case of Yoga Sutra, the first Yoga Sutra starts with Atha Yoga Anushashanam. So it also means when you are talking to somebody and you want to have a different point of view, you want to have a different view, so you say in case. So then also you can use this atha in case. And in case, manya say, you consider this self as constantly subject to birth and death. So tatha api, even then, O one with mighty arms. So here Lord is referring to Arjuna as one with mighty arms. Like, you are not weak. Do not become weak even if you have a different understanding for the self. What I have told you so far, it is something Lord has said that it has been ascertained by the people who can see the truth. So it's not just my personal opinion. I am telling you something which is in accordance with the scriptures, and it is in accordance with the experience of the people. He said tattvadarshi bhihi in one of the verses earlier. So it is in accordance with what the wise people have seen, directly experienced. But even then, even if you think otherwise, even then there is no reason for you to grieve. So this is an interesting word which comes here multiple times, that natam shochitum arhasi. There is no reason for you to grieve. If you remember when we discussed Gita teachings to start with, Lord starts in 2:11. That Arjuna, you grieve over those who should not be grieved for, and yet speak like learned. Wise men do not sorrow over the dead or the living. This is one of the central themes of Gita, that how to take one beyond grief. That was Arjuna's problem, and that is also our problem. That we are subject to sorrow and grief from time to time. And we want to live a life where there would be no sorrow, no grief whatsoever, no matter what happens. That is our inherent desire. That's why Gita is applicable to us even after thousands of years, because it is addressing that central point, which is the desire of every single human beings, that I should be free from sorrow. So therefore you see this word natam shochitum arhasi has been repeated so many times, that whatever I have told you, Lord is saying, if you understand that, if you like he is saying here, viditva, if you know in this manner, then there is no reason for you to grieve. But even in case that you have your own understanding of the self as being born constantly and being subject to death constantly, not as an eternal thing, or not as unmodifiable, never subject to change, like that kind of understanding you do not get, even then there is no reason for you to grieve. So again and again, this part is very important in Bhagavad-Gita, that you can be free from sorrow now itself, not sometime in the future, not after death that you go to heaven, but living here now, here and now, with the help of the knowledge. So this being the contention here of, here if you see shochitum, this is an infinitive word form. So that's why it's become indeclinable here, to grieve. And the same, just a little different here, anushochitum. Anushochitum also means to grieve. It just means following some incident that you attain the grief. So they have the very similar meaning. And viditva here is having known. So the moment you know, you are free from grief. It's not that it takes time after knowledge to, it's not that knowledge to arise and then there something needs to happen and then you be free from grief. You become free from grief the moment this knowledge arises, you understand this thoroughly. So with this, I would like to take any questions you may have. Okay, there is a question here. This is difficult. If self is beyond knowing, how can Arjuna take it as a fact? It is blind faith in Krishna's birth. We never said that it is beyond the knowing. We said it's not an object of thought. There is a difference between not being able to know versus not being a subject of thought. So what does it mean is that here Lord is saying achintya. It is not an object of thought. Because in order to have an object of thought, you must exist. How can you yourself be a object of thought? If you could be an object of thought, for whom? For yourself. That means you must exist previously. That therefore it cannot be an object of thought. You must pre-exist in order to think. So the knowledge of the self does not arise that it is an object that you can think. The knowledge of the self arises as self itself, as the one self, that I am this, not I see this or I know this, not as an object of thought. So therefore, the Vedantic dictum that aham brahmasmi, I am that, arises. In that sense, this knowledge arises. So I hope that clarifies you that it is not a blind faith for sure. That's Lord is making it very clear that it's viditva. You know it, and it is not an object of thought because it is yourself. There is a comment here, the supreme truth is not to be known or talked about. It is to be experienced as supreme truth. So I hope that point is clear now. Lord is very clearly talking about that it is to be known, it is to be understood, and that understanding itself is the experience. Because it is based upon yourself, the moment you understand, that is the moment of experience. And I want to tell you a story here, which is a very popular story in Vedantic literature, that The story describes once 10 people, they gathered together and they decided. So they were students in a monastery, students in a Gurukulam. They got together and they wanted to explore the town. So they took Guruji's permission, saying that, look, we are going to just explore. And Guruji said, okay, if you want to go and explore the town, that is fine. Go into the countryside, it is okay. But just make sure that you take care of each other. And he assigns one person as the leader of the troop and saying, look, I'm counting here. There are 10 people. And he counts 1, 2, 3, 10. And you must make sure that everybody is together. And that person says, okay. So as they are going for the trip, they come across a river. And they all knew swimming. And they decide to cross the river and explore on the other side. So the leader said, okay, all right, let us all go and to the other side. And they all swam across. And after reaching on the other side, the leader of the troop, he says, okay, let me count just to make sure all of us are here. And he started counting. And he counts 1, 2, 3, 9. He's not counting himself. And he's counting 9 people. And again he counts 9. Now he's started getting worried. He thought one of us is lost. Drowned in the river, gone. And again he counts, but count is not going to change. It is he's able to count only 9, and he's getting very nervous. He's getting full of fear and worry and the sorrow. And then another student tries to help him and saying, okay, let me count. And again, this student is no better. He also misses himself and counts the other 9. So now the situation became such that all of them started crying, saying one of us is lost. They did not know, because they were all gathered together in the first day. They did not know each other's name, so they could not ascertain who is the 10th fellow who is drowned. But they all were certain that somehow the 10th person is drowned, and they were all crying. So a person, when he heard them crying, he was passing by, he came and said, what happened? And they described the story, and this person just mentally counted, and he sees that there are 10 people. And then he understood where. So he asked the leader, how are you counting? And leader counts again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then he says, look, it is only 9. We have lost one person. So that person who had come to help them, to see them cry, to see what the matter was, he understood what the matter was, where the problem lies. Problem is not that one person drowned. Problem is the ignorance of the person not being able to count himself. So he says, you all stand in one line. And he takes a small stick and taps on everybody's head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And finally on the leader's head, 10. You are the 10th one. And the moment he heard that, and moment he understood that, all of a sudden all his sorrow disappeared. Because he knew he was the 10th one, and there is nobody lost, there is no reason for sorrow. So the moment he knew himself as the 10th one, I am the 10th one. Not that I know the 10th one, not as an object. Don't know the 10th one as an object, but I myself am 10th one. That knowledge did arise, and the sorrow disappeared thereafter. So this story is just an illustration that how do we miss ourselves only, and then try to figure out, try to make it as an object, try to objectify the self, which is not going to happen, because the self is the one who is trying to objectify. and therefore it is known to be self as such by oneself, not as an object. So the knowing itself is experiencing here. There is a question here, Nityam is an indeclinable. Nityam, it can be also indeclinable, as well as it can be a noun with the declensions. So if you just have the word Nityam, it can be also indeclinable. Like here, I am using the word Nityam as indeclinable, but it can also have declensions. So both are possible. There is another question, why is it tathapi, not tathopi? Why should it be tathopi? Tatha plus api. It is the sandhi of two vowels, similar vowels coming together, dirgha sandhi. Tatha api, tathapi. So there is a question here, Pranam Baba. Soch is in Hindi is think. Does sochitum have different meaning based upon context in Sanskrit? So in English, Hindi we say sochna, that is for thinking. It is true. But in Sanskrit, the root is shuch. Shuch means to grieve, and from shuch, the sochitum has come. So in Hindi, normally we don't say shakara, it is sakara, the dantyasa, not the talavyasa when we use. There is a question here with verse 26. Why would the Lord try to compromise with an incorrect understanding that Arjuna, the devotee, may have? So Lord already gave the knowledge. And he's saying that knowing this, you should be free from grief. And it seems that it was clear from Arjuna's face when Lord must have spoken that he did not get that point. He did not, this knowledge did not arise in his heart as myself. Then Lord is saying that, okay, even if your understanding is the otherwise, there is still no reason for grieving. So basically the thing is that even though the grief will be gone forever with the correct understanding, but even with the understanding which Arjuna has, grief is still illogical. It doesn't have any reason. There is no legitimate reason for one to grieve. So there is a comment here. I think Lord Krishna explains that one cannot give descriptions nor definitions for the truth. So the way the truth is described or defined, it is said, you don't directly describe or define the truth, but it is like pointing the finger to show the moon. So the finger which is pointed is not the moon, yet it can help one to see the moon. So in that sense, the words are used to define and describe. There is a comment here, why validate the possibility of self being born and dying if that is not the real way of the things? The idea here is to be able to free from grief, and you are saying that I am not able to understand what you are saying. Lord is saying, okay, even with your understanding, if you think a little bit logically, there is no reason for grief. It's not validating what Arjuna is thinking. It is just saying that even then there is no reason for you to grieve. Hearing is the best sense to know Krishna. Is it right? So in Vedanta there is a word called Shravanam. Shravanam means hearing. And in Vedanta, that is considered the first step to gain the knowledge, that you listen to the teacher. And it is not the sense, you do not attain the knowledge by the sense organ. So you attain, so like when a word is spoken, the meaning of the word, it shines in your heart, and that's how you understand. Simply listening the sound, that is the function of the Shrotrendriya. So even if somebody speaks to you a word in Russian or Chinese, you would still hear something. That is the function of sense organ. You will not understand anything. So it is the understanding which is important here, and hearing is just a means for that. But it's not that self can be perceived by the sense organ of hearing, the ear. There is a comment here, Achintya, as I understood now in previous learning, subject and object represent Dvaitam. What exists is only one, Advaitam. So one cannot completely understanding being in Dvaitam. Yes, that is true. Just to let you know that the understanding, when you are trying to understand, we are in Dvaitam, we are in multiplicity. There is a student and teacher. When the understanding dawns, you understand that as one. Thank you, Jeffrey Baba, for your comment. There is a comment here. Thank you for all the beautiful explanations. What is the best way to know or experience the truth? Is it meditation? There are many types, or reading all the scriptures, or other sadhanas which are too many. So Lord describes many things in the subsequent chapters. So for one who is ready, one whose mind is pure, just these words what Lord spoke so far are enough. But otherwise, there are many practices, and meditation is one of them to purify the mind. We practice Kriya Yoga. It's a beautiful technique. But whatever technique appeals to you that you can commit yourself to, that will help you to purify the mind and understand this. There is a comment here. I am not sure where this comment is coming from. That Indian Hindus, it is maybe for Indians or Hindus, it is more clear than for a Westerner who has no faith, no God, just living in a spiritual no land. That is absolutely not the correct statement, because the self, if you truly understand as a Hindu that part, you will understand that the same self is actually manifested in every other form. So this statement clearly shows that whoever you have made the statement, that you don't have that clarity, because the very fact that self is the one doesn't differentiate between Hindu and non-Hindu, or the Western or Indian. So I hope with that, it is, I'm happy that could have all this discussion with you. And with this, we will close the session. Just one more thing is that we have completed the verse 26. This particular section of Gita, the called Jnana Yoga or Sankhya Yoga, it goes up to verse number 30. So we will stop our course of this Gita classes at the verse number 30, considering we are doing 2 verses in a day. So we can have 27, 28 next time, and 29, 30 in the next class. So 2 more class, and the third class could be for summarizing the whole thing. So we will have 3 more classes, and let us look at the date. So 10, 17, 24. So October 24 would be our last class. 24 we will just have a summary of all the verses, 30 verses. So we'll stop at the verse number 30, and we can probably start sometime in the future remaining verses of second chapter, because this is really a wonderful chapter, and it covers pretty much, as I told you, the whole summary of Gita. So far we saw the Sankhya Yoga part. Then another major portion of this is Karma Yoga part, and that is covered from verse number 47 onwards. 30 to 47 kind of gives you a little bit background, or the preface for the Karma Yoga. And so for this particular course, as we are having right now, we will finish it on October 24th as the last class. So next 2 classes will cover those 2 verses each, and 24th, the last class, would be a summarization. So just wanted to let you know. With this, we will close the class with the prayers. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। Thank you everyone.